So, hello, I'm Sue Jane O'Keefe from Healthwatch Enfield, and I'm the Community Engagement Officer. I'm usually out and about meeting people in groups, but these days I'm doing a lot more online sessions just like these. So thank you for joining us all today. We're going to be talking about flu jabs. We've invited some people from the Integrated Learning Disabilities team to answer your questions. You may have already met them or spoken to them before, I'm sure you have. We've got Chris O'Donnell, you've got some nods, fantastic. Chris O'Donnell, who's the Person-Centred Planning Coordinator. Give us a wave, Chris. Yay. And Priscilla Surfres, who's the Service Manager and Clinical Advisor to NHS England Integrated Learning Disabilities Services. That's a long title, isn't it?
Very long.
Hi. Priscilla, thank you. And we've also got Padmini Miniar, who's a community nurse, who I'm sure a lot of you already know. Give us a wave, please, Padmini. Thank you. Excellent. So I'm going to ask you a question now before we start, if that's okay. So how many of you have already had your flu jab? Hands up, who's had a flu jab already?
No.
Yeah?
No.
I don't put my hands
count
up.
all those hands. Okay. And how many of you are planning to get one or are waiting to get one?
I've got a Priscilla. Can I say something about that?
Okay.
Go on,
It's
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, by the way. What? Well, I was booked to have one tomorrow at my doctor's, but they've cancelled it again.
Right. Okay, we'll talk about that as part of this conversation as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, lovely. Okay, and who's not sure about having their flu jab? Was a little bit worried? Anybody that's not sure, a bit worried, a bit anxious? No? Okay, fantastic. So, before we start, let's go through a couple of the facts about the flu jab that you may or may not already know. So, the flu jab is also called the flu vaccine in the posh word. It's offered to lots of different people within the community. It is free. There's no cost for people who are vulnerable, like old or very young people, or people who have health problems or learning disabilities. It stops people from getting very sick with the flu. And flu's a lot worse than just having a bad cold. Your body can ache. Your head and your nose feels really bunged up. You can get a headache. You can feel tired, have a cough, have a fever, sore throat, and breathing problems. These problems can develop into really serious respiratory conditions. That means it gives you serious breathing problems on your chest. And you could end up in hospital, or worse, die from it, especially if you have other health problems already. So it's better to have a jab if you can, so that you can avoid catching it. You'll be contacted by your GP or your doctor, however you describe that, to have your GP or vaccine, and they'll give you information about where to go and how to have it. Normally, it's an injection in your arm. There's other ways it can be given, and we'll tell you about those in a bit. So when the nurse or doctor contacts you about your appointment, it's important to let them know if you're worried before you go. So if you have fears, you're a little bit anxious, you're not sure about it, talk to them and they'll go through the best way to help you get it done safely without you worrying. Is that okay? So, if everyone can still hear me and still see me, I would like another little thumbs up, please, just to make sure you're still there. Look at that. You got some great fun work, guys. Well done. Thank you.
I do your favourite thing. I don't know how to do a thumbs up.
Great. Thank you. What is available for those with needle phobia who can't have the flu jab? That's people that get nervous about injections. So we're going to open that up to our speakers now. Who'd like to answer that question, please?
Chris, do you want to do that one?
Go on. I'm just checking my notes. Well, basically, it's not always, doesn't have to be a needle. There are alternatives to needles. That kind of depends on the vaccination you need. So the first thing to do is ask your GP when you get the appointment for your flu jab if there's a alternative to needles you can use. And they all advise you might be able to get it by a spray. There are some patches that are available, but it does depend on the vaccine you need at that time. But what I would like to say is, for people who are needle phobic, is our nurses, particularly Priscilla, some of your team, are fantastic at working with people. And the number of people I know who told me they were needle phobic and a year later are having blood tests and vaccines comfortably and confidently, with a few reasonable adjustments and the right support. So I would recommend having a chat to a community nurse about your fear of needles and see if we can do something for you. There's lots of things we can do, and I'm looking at people in the call now, but I wouldn't put anybody to actually tell their story, but we could get people telling their stories of how they are now managing with needles regularly in spite of their fears. So don't worry, it's not a barrier, and either through alternative methods or through working with the fear of needles, we can still manage to get your flu jab.
Yeah,
that's great. Thank you, Chris. I think the idea of having an injection is often worse than actually having it sometimes. So it's really good to know that there are ways you can actually talk it through and get the support you need to make sure that you can have the injections that you need to have to keep you well.
And if it's helpful having someone tell a story.
Does anyone want to share a story with us? Is that
Naomi there? With your hand up?
Naomi.
Ah, okay.
What if you can't have the flu vaccinations because you're allergic to it?
Okay. Priscilla might come in on the medical thing there. The flu, there is a very, very small number of people that might have an allergic reaction to the flu vaccine. It is mostly made, although it's different every year, it's mostly the thing that would cause the allergy is quite consistent. So ask your GP if this year's flu vaccine is okay. But I'm not aware of a way of definitely getting a flu vaccine if you're allergic to the ingredient that causes the reaction. So that may be a situation where some people might just have to be extra careful with the infection control.
No, because
right, Priscilla?
Yeah, but I mean, the thing with the allergic reaction, what would happen? It would literally, if you were going to be allergic, it would be within a few minutes of having the jab. So you would actually be with the doctor or the nurse that's giving you the jab, and they would be trained in dealing with you immediately, because you normally, once you've had the jab, you're there for a few minutes. So they would be observing if there's any issues or any reaction, and you'd be treated immediately. So you wouldn't be sent off, and then suddenly later on you've got an allergic reaction. It wouldn't work that way.
If you've
no, because what it was, I went to my doctor, right, to have the flu vaccination. I just come out the room, all of a sudden my nose started streaming. I just got into the next room, which is the waiting room. My throat started to hurt. I got to the reception, my chest started hurting. By the time I got home, I had one hell of a stinking rotten cold, and it lasted 3 weeks. So I checked with my GP, and he said, you must have allergic reaction. I said, well, the problem is there should have been a letter saying that this person cannot have the flu vaccinations because she has allergic reaction to the ingredients in it. So what it was, right, they checked with the hospital and they said, oh, that is right, because you can't have them. But since I haven't had them, I haven't had one stinking rotten cold.
Well, that's good, and it's a good sign you're doing your infection control properly. And that's important, because if we talk to your GP, because every year is different, there's a possibility you might be okay for 1 year, but talk to your GP first and always say you've had an allergic reaction before, if that's what the GP said it is. And then you might just have to Well, it's all the stuff we're doing all the time, isn't it? Washing your hands, don't
Yeah.
touch your face, avoid crowds.
Yeah, each
And
year.
especially at the moment, if it's wearing face masks in shops and things, then
Mhm.
we're probably doing really good infection control anyway.
Yeah.
No, because I have them every year, because I've had them every year, and every year was the same. But when I didn't have it for 2 years,
Hmm.
I didn't have one cold.
Okay, GP is the one to advise. It's very rare to get an allergic reaction, but a very small number of people do. So take your GP's advice on that.
And we'll go on to the next question, which
Yeah.
is, what are the side effects of flu jabs? So that's probably really well timed now.
Yeah.
Who'd like to answer that question, please?
Yeah, I'll go for that. So, I mean, obviously, Naomi has just said about her side effects, I guess. As to whether it's an allergic reaction is another matter, but more often than not, a side effect would be a little bit of a, like a cold symptom. You might have a little bit of aching, a little bit of a fever, and you could get a little bit of a cold afterwards. Not always, though. It always depends. Everyone's different. I mean, I've had a flu jab and I didn't have any reaction, so lucky for me. But there was 1 year where I did, depending on the ingredients. But it's not usually serious side effects or anything. It's more like a little bit of discomfort, a bit of a cold, bit of a runny nose, maybe a bit of a sore throat. And you might have a bit of a sore arm after the injection as well. That can be sore in the area of the arm where it's been done. So you might get a little bit sore and feel a little bit, your arm might feel a bit heavy. But it's never really any serious side effects of the flu jab. One thing to remember about the flu jabs, it's not going to prevent you from having a cold, but it may prevent you from having the big flu that can kill, that is dangerous. So all it will do is just prevent you from the big flu that a lot of people die from each year. But it doesn't mean it will stop you from having flu-like symptoms or some kind of other type of flu. But it's just to help to make sure that it doesn't become more serious. Just to bear that in mind.
So how long does it take for the vaccine to work properly in the body, roughly?
I've
It's a few
got
days.
my notes on that, if it helps. It can take 2 or 3 weeks for the vaccine to make you immune to the flu.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the questions that's coming up. I'm kind of answering ahead here is, how can people get the flu jab and still get the flu?
Yeah.
But commonly, if you have the flu jab, and if you get the flu within 2 or 3 weeks, that's because the flu jab isn't working yet. It takes 2 or 3 weeks, which is why we like to do it early.
Yeah, you could be unlucky and just happen to be getting the flu anyway before the vaccine actually kicks in. That's the only thing you can't guarantee. But yeah.
And I suppose you could have picked up a cold as well along the way, so it could have been a whole load of different things, couldn't it? It could have been just really bad luck.
Sometimes, it's bad luck. Sometimes it happens to be coincidence. A lot of people think, I remember saying the same thing a few years ago. Whenever I have a flu jab, I end up with the flu. So what's the point? Because you do sort of think, but it's just because what had happened, probably I'd had the flu jab a bit later than I should have. I've had it in like November, December, and I've already picked up flu symptoms probably before it kicks in. So now obviously I've understood that, and I'm trying to have the flu jab earlier in the year rather than later. So that's to bear that in mind as well. So the sooner you have the flu jab, the better.
Thank you. So
Also,
why
to be clear
doesn't...
for people, sorry, just jumped in there.
No, go on.
Cold and flu are very different.
Yeah.
Lots of people say they've had the flu when they've had a bad cold.
Yeah.
If you're over it within 3 or 4 days, it's not the flu.
It's a cold. Yeah.
Flu takes 2 or 3 weeks.
Absolutely.
Very different thing.
Yeah.
That's really helpful, thank you, because I think there is a bit of confusion around that sometimes. It might feel like you've got the flu if you've got a nasty cold, but it isn't necessarily always the case.
No,
So,
flu is something that you would literally can't get out of bed for. You can't function, you can't do anything. You're very, very ill with the flu. Whereas a cold, you feel pretty rotten, and you feel that maybe for 2 or 3 days you don't want to get. After 2 or 3 days, you're out and about and doing and being functional, even though you've got a runny cold and all the rest of it. That's a cold. But yeah, people do get that confused. I've had the flu when it's not the flu. It's very rare that people actually get the proper flu. Very rare.
So why doesn't the flu jab make it go away? Please.
It's not a cure. A jab doesn't cure anything. A jab prevents you getting it in the first place. So if you've got the flu, there's no point going for your jab. It's not a cure.
Okay, thank you. So that's why it's so important to have it before, as soon as you can, nice and early if possible. That's great. So how does the flu jab protect you from all the different flus? Because there's different types, isn't there?
It won't protect you from all the different types of flu viruses. It will protect you for that particular flu that they have the ingredients for that year. Each year is different. So, but it will only protect you for what the ingredients are in there. So you can't guarantee that you will not have a flu, but you may have a different type of flu.
Okay, thank you. And about the types of flu jabs, there's different ones. Why is that? And which ones should I have?
Okay, so I've got notes here. One quadrivalent is for people aged, so this is what it's called. It's for people aged 18 to 65, and the other one, Fluad, is for people aged over 65. Both will help protect from flu. However, research shows that Fluad is a more appropriate vaccine in those aged 65 and over. So I'm assuming that if you're under 65, you would have had the quadrivalent, whatever you call it. I don't know, I can't even say. Yeah, that's the different types they've got at the moment. You know, every year can change.
There's nobody over 65 here, is there today? You're all young chicks, aren't you? Oh, we have one. Okay, you look so young. I just got it wrong. So sorry.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yes, I am over 65. Yes.
Okay, so you'd have the Fluad then.
That's what I was going to ask, actually. You know, the different types of flu jabs. The other thing I was going to mention as well is sort of like, why don't the nurses or whoever give us the injections tell us which ones we're having and give us a piece of paper stating which type it is?
You could ask. You could ask when you go there. There's no harm in asking.
Yeah, no, but I had mine because I'm in sheltered accommodation. They came, and that's it. You know, because I mean, I remember the last time I had a flu jab and the pneumonia jab. Yes, they gave me some information about both of them. And well, I can't understand, why don't they just give us that information?
Yeah, it's a good point. I must admit, I certainly wasn't given any information when I had mine. So yeah, I think it's a matter of us asking for it, I guess.
That's actually going to be our next question. So you were right on the ball there, actually. That's fantastic.
Can I say something quickly?
Yes.
It's Elizabeth here, right. I was supposed to have the flu jab tomorrow, Tuesday, but the doctors where I live, they rang me during the week and on Friday and said, oh, sorry, that's been cancelled.
Have they offered another appointment? Have they offered another day?
Yes.
They have.
The 2nd of November.
2nd of November. That's leaving it a bit late.
And they said they haven't got the one for me in.
They haven't got the vaccine in for her age group.
For my age group yet, Priscilla.
They haven't got what?
The age group. But they didn't have one in for my age group.
Oh, so they didn't have the actual right one for your age group?
No.
Equivalent, I suppose. Maybe they had only the Fluad, because most GP surgeries, you know, their priorities are the over 65s, and then everyone else comes after that, unfortunately. So maybe they just didn't get the batch. The batch probably didn't come.
Hello.
That's great. Thank you.
She should be a priority as well, though, shouldn't she? Because she has got kidney disease. No, you've not. What is it?
Well, I suppose it depends on their suppliers and who, you know, whether they've got their supplies in, and I suspect that they don't, and that's probably why. There is problems with supply and demand, being honest, with a lot of things, as you know. you know, with PPE and all sorts of things. And I'm pretty sure that's probably what the issue is the supply of enough of the vaccines, especially now that they're offering it out to more and more people. Before it used to be, you know, only the over 65s and those that were high, you know, health needs. And now it's open out to everyone, more or less. So probably supply and demand is becoming a problem, I imagine.
There's been a big campaign as well about the flu jab, trying to get everyone to make sure they have it.
Yeah.
So that's encouraged more people that perhaps didn't have it before to come forward. So that's probably, there's been a lot more interest in it this year, particularly during the pandemic, to have the flu jab.
Exactly.
So this is one of the questions, leads nicely on to our next question, which is, what's the difference between flu and coronavirus?
Yeah. Chris, you want that one?
The influenza virus causes the flu. The coronavirus causes COVID-19. The different viruses. We have a vaccine for most types of flu, so we can prevent most types of flu. We don't have a vaccine for coronavirus, so we can't prevent it.
Yeah.
They both can affect your lungs, so they can have fairly similar symptoms. Things like a fever, a cough, being short of breath, feeling tired, having a runny nose and a sore throat, feeling achy, having headaches. Some people can have vomiting and diarrhea as well. So in some ways they're quite similar. One of the differences with COVID-19 is you lose your sense of taste and smell, which doesn't happen quite so much with flu. And also with COVID-19, it tends to be a dry cough that's sort of up here, whereas flu, you get a phlegmy, wet cough down below. But it is very similar. So the only way to be absolutely sure is to have a test.
Yeah.
So you can get tests. If you have a fever or a cough, yes, it might be flu, or it might be a cold, but it might be coronavirus, which we can't prevent, so we can't control it. So it's really important to get a test. And you can get a test by popping along to one of the vans that show up every so often in Edmonton Green or Trent Park or various places the vans show up. Or you can have a little test kit sent home, which is basically like a little earbud, about that big. You have to put it in your nose and twiddle it around and pop it back in an envelope and send it off in the post, and then you'll get your result that way. So for this winter anyway, if you've got something with a fever, a chesty cough, or particularly if it's affecting your sense of taste or smell, it's important to get a test and to self-isolate until you find out.
If you want to find out more about testing, you can always ring Healthwatch. You know, we can help put you in the right direction. Okay, so that's an option to you.
Yeah, because
all the links on My Life, you can go on your mobile phone, click your way through My Life, and book a test through that as well if you want.
Yeah,
that was a really important question. Does everyone understand that question? Well, the answers. Is everyone happy with the differences between the two? Did you all understand that? Can I have a thumbs up if you did, or a hand wave? Right, I'm getting all sorts of responses. Brilliant, thank you guys. Appreciate that. Lovely, lovely. So our next question is, how do they make the flu jabs?
Well, there's all sorts of ingredients that go into making the vaccine or flu jab. Things like antibiotics and even egg. The ingredients change slightly every year because there are different types of flu viruses. But there are 4 main types of flu vaccine this year, and each one is used for different groups of people, like young people, elderly people. So, I mean, we don't know the full extent of the ingredients, but yeah, that's done in the lab, I suspect. But yeah, people, obviously, if you're allergic to egg, that could be a problem, I suspect, if egg is in there.
I'm one of those people. I'm allergic to eggs, so yes, it's an issue.
So that's interesting, because obviously some of the ingredients, you know, if you happen to be allergic to one of those ingredients, that could be a reason why you've got an allergic reaction. Just bear in mind. Yeah.
Good point. Thank you very much. We've already had mention about the allergic reaction to the flu jab. and we've already had someone say that if you've been told you're not allowed to have it, obviously, what are the other options?
That's a good question. Are there any other options? It's all about infection control and keeping yourself safe, because I don't know if there's any other alternative to a flu jab.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if you are genuinely allergic, then it's just important to be very aware of your infection control.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest, I think we all must be pretty much experts on infection control at this stage.
Yeah. Hands, face. I think we all know that one, don't we now? Definitely. Yeah. All experts on that thing. So, any more questions? Because we've come to the end of our questions now, and we'd like to open up to you if you've got any extra questions for us. Anybody? Yes?
You said about the vaccinations, it's got like eggs in. And someone said they were allergic to eggs. I'm allergic to eggs. I'm allergic to bananas.
Oh, there you go.
Right. And nobody told me what was in the vaccinations.
They don't.
Maybe that's what caused me to have the allergic reaction, because it must have had eggs in, which I'm allergic to.
Yeah.
That's what must have made me sick then, because of, when I had the flu vaccination, that's why I came over sick. And every year, every year when I've had it, I was either sick or end up in hospital because of it.
Oh, we've found it now. We found the reason why, so that's fantastic. So when you speak to your doctor, mention that you're allergic to egg and see what else they can offer you. There may be alternatives they can give to you.
Well, I did ask my GP, and he said, why don't we try the MMR one, which is the measles, mumps and rubella one. And they tried that one, and I didn't have allergic reaction. So now they said it's better for me to have the MMR one, where I don't have to get sick.
That's very interesting, Naomi. I hadn't heard of that before, but so maybe there's some flu protection from having an additional MMR. Interesting.
Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you. Any other questions at all, please?
You can always ask pharmacists as well, because sometimes they can give you that detail. You know, if you've got certain allergies, it might be worth asking the pharmacist what is in the actual ingredients, because they will probably know that detail.
And has anyone got anything they weren't sure about, that they've heard about today, that they just want us to reword for you or perhaps explain again? Have we made it all nice and clear? Yeah, fantastic. Okay. So as a result of today's session, I just want to check with you again. So how many of us are now going to have one? Any hands up or have one? Yes, hands up. And has anyone changed their mind or feel better or happier now about having a flu jab or an alternative? Show of hands if you can, if you're happy with it, if you've changed or things are better now as a result of it. Excellent, thank you. So we worked closely now with Sarah. Everybody knows Sarah, right? The lovely Sarah from One-to-One, yeah. And she's created an easy read document all about Healthwatch Enfield and what we do and all the ways and the services we can help to you. So you can find this on the new One-to-One website, or you can visit Healthwatch's website, or you can contact our helpline, and I'll ask Claire to put the number in the chat for you, just in case you don't know it already. But it's 0208 373 6283. Put that in your phone so you can always ring us if you've got any health and social care questions, okay? Our information line is there for you. Anything to do with health or social care, that's GPs, dentists, and it can be good things, compliments, as well as things that you're not sure about or things that you're upset about. Let us know about it. There's lots of information out there, as you well know, on social media, which isn't checked and can be fake news. So come to us. We give you trusted and verified and checked information. And if we can't help you with the information ourselves, we'll make sure that we put you in touch with somebody who can. We're there to help you, so don't forget. And there's some great news as well. We've got another session planned on the 29th of October, all about annual health checks.
Yeah.
So please speak to Sarah or contact us if you're interested in joining, and we'd love to see you again. So anybody got their health checks done already? Anybody waiting for health checks? Yeah, fantastic. So
I'll just say something about that.
well, we're going to have a session on it soon. We're going to have a session where you can actually ask lots and lots of questions.
No, because I haven't had one. Because the doctors keep. We went to one appointment and they said, "Oh, sorry, you know nothing about the health check."
Okay, and what we'll do is we're gonna have all of these questions in our next session. So we're going to make sure we've got some good answers for you when you come back. So,
yeah, okay.
so please join us then, if that's okay. Yeah, join us then. That would be great.
Yeah.
So if you've got any feedback on how we can make this session better for you for next time, we want to hear it. We want to make sure it works well for you. So thank you everybody for coming along today. You've been brilliant, and thank you for joining in and answering us questions as well, and giving us the thumbs up as well, so we know that you're understanding and it's all good. And thank you to the panel. You have answered some great questions. Thank you for coming along today, and I hope to see you all again on the 29th.
Yay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You take care, everybody. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye.